Hello, and welcome to Stories from India, a podcast where we talk about myths, legends, and folk tales from India. I am your host, Narada Muni, and I'm a mythological character myself. I have the gift of eternal life and knowledge of the past, the present, and the future. By profession, I'm a traveling musician and a storyteller. So the way I'm doing my job is by podcast. We don't usually meet midweek, but this time it's a special occasion. Today, we have completed 2 years on this podcast. It's a big milestone for me, and I deeply appreciate your support and your feedback in getting us here. To show my appreciation, here's a bonus episode. This one features me, at least in the beginning. This is a showdown between two of the three entities in the Holy Trinity. The Trinity is composed of Brahma, the creator of the universe, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. And shameless plug here, but Brahma is also my dad. Yep, those are the kind of circles I move in. Today's story begins with a conversation that I had with Indra. Indra is basically the king of the Devs and the ruler of heaven. We have met Indra before in many stories. He can be a bit arbitrary at times. So, anyway, I was chatting with Indra when the topic of conversation changed to rankings. Specifically, who was number one and who was number two.
Obviously, it's Shiva. He's way more powerful,
said Indra. That stung. I am a massive Vishnu fan, as you listeners already know. It's not that I don't think Shiva has awesome powers, or that Brahma can't create anything he puts one of his four minds to. It's just that I am the lifelong president of the Vishnu fan club. Indra continued, completely ignoring my expression of shock.
We saw in episode 46. Vishnu couldn't even see most of Shiva.
How could Shiva not be the most powerful? You're forgetting something important, I told him. Shiva is the destroyer of the universe, and Vishnu is the preserver. Shiva is helped along by entropy and thermodynamics, but Vishnu has to work against it, and he has to work against both Shiva and Brahma. Maintaining a fine balance is a lot harder than upsetting it.
If working against entropy is so hard, then Brahma must be the most powerful,
Indra said. We stared at each other and burst out laughing.
Joking aside, I really want to prove that Shiva is the most powerful,
Indra said.
Maybe we get them to play a game, some kind of sport,
he suggested. That's far too much like a Bollywood movie, I countered. We'll just end up with a controversial tiebreaker and neither side will accept a loss.
Then we just have to have them fight, Indra said.
I politely agreed, but I really should have foreseen that when Indra said something, he meant putting it into action right then and there. I guess it's just the kind of thing you might expect from someone who's held on to a lot of power for far too long. I was designated driver, of course, while Indra kept talking at great length about how this contest would finally answer so many other questions. We reached Kailash, where Shiva lives. Luckily for us, he was home. Parvati and Shiva greeted us warmly, but Nandi, their home security system, glared at us suspiciously. You're here to have Shiva fight someone, aren't you? He asked.
I don't think it's just anyone they want me to fight, Shiva said. It's Vishnu.
Nandi gasped and covered his mouth with a hoof in surprise. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Nandi is a bull. That explains the hoof. Parvati's response was a bit on the enthusiastic side. Great, I'll get the popcorn, she said. Shiva did not want to fight. It took a lot of persuasion, but he agreed to finally give it a go. All of us then approached Vishnu at his home, floating on a snake in the ocean of milk. Vishnu was reluctant in the beginning, just as Shiva had been. Lakshmi's reaction was just as Parvati's had been. She started making a large batch of popcorn as well. But they assembled at the fighting ground, which was chosen to be a region of intergalactic space free of matter and dark matter, to minimize any interference. Indra was personally refereeing this.
Let me explain the rules, he started. First, no sidekicks. So Nandi, Sheshnag, you both stay out of this. Second, no courtside coaching. So Lakshmi, Parvati, that's for you. Third, you can't use your supernatural powers. That means Shiva, you're not allowed to open your third eye. And Vishnu, you're not allowed to transform into a unicorn fish or a flying rhinoceros boar or a lion man. Just be yourself.
And what if my normal self involves transforming into one form or the other? Vishnu asked. What if my current form is just a transition before I become the next anthropomorphic creature?
Well, control it. Don't feel it. Don't let them out. Just continue to be what you look like now, Indra answered. Anyway, carrying on. Fourth and final rule. You can only use Vishwakarma brand weapons. Anything else is disqualified. So I can use my Sudarshan Chakra then?
Asked Vishnu. At which both Indra and Shiva began to pale a bit.
No, replied Indra, thinking quickly. It has to be an original Vishwakarma product. OEM stamped and everything. You have customized the Sudarshan Chakra, so that doesn't count. Pity, said Vishnu. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't think it'll change the outcome. Shiva and Vishnu each took out their bows. Incredibly large and powerful bows. The kind that require hundreds of people just to transport them.
Wait a minute, Parvati said. Didn't Vishnu as Ram break these in episode 16?
You don't think he broke our only bows, did you, Parvati?
Shiva answered.
Besides, anyone can break a bow. It takes real skill to use one.
And at that last remark, he was glaring at Vishnu. Before they began the fight, they prayed to each other. Vishnu, why are you praying to your opponent? I asked, appalled.
I derive some of my strength from him, Vishnu answered. It's only natural that I should do this. Besides, in every major fictional story that people are used to, the hero starts off praying to a god before a climactic fight scene. I have to stick to the stereotype to give the public what they want.
Shiva had a very similar reason for praying to Vishnu. Then came the moment we have all been waiting for. The fight began. Vishnu and Shiva fired all kinds of arrows at each other. If Vishnu shot an arrow that burst into fire, Shiva fired one with an attached sprinkler system. If Shiva fired an arrow with lots of sharp scissors, Vishnu responded with lots of rocks to break the blades. This very physical rock, paper, scissors game continued, with neither side gaining an advantage. When Indra blew the whistle for halftime, the scoreboard still said that it was a goalless draw. I wasn't allowed to talk to Vishnu because of the coaching rule, but I really wanted to give him some advice. I wanted to tell Vishnu to fire mice at Shiva. Then the snake, Vasuki, which was coiled around Shiva's neck, would probably reach out to grab a flying mouse. That would constrict Shiva's neck more and distract him enough for Vishnu to gain a tactical advantage.
I cannot do that, Narad. That would not be cool,
Vishnu's voice said, directly in my head. I'm not sure if he actually read my thoughts and responded, or if it was just my own thoughts telling me what they thought Vishnu would say. Vishnu and Shiva continued fighting for what seemed like an eternity. They both looked tired, but the fight went on. I noticed something strange about them. The more they kept fighting, the more feeble their blows seemed to become. The last few arrows failed to even cross the halfway point between them. This is getting boring, Lakshmi muttered. Oh, look at the time. I'm late for a puja. A couple of my devotees are praying to me. I can't just ignore them. She left. Parvati made an excuse about bedtime for Ganesh and Kartikeya and left as well. Nandi said that he thought he heard the Kailas intruder alarm ring. It was probably nothing, but he should definitely go check it out, he said. Brahma had dozed off, and all four of his heads were snoring. It was embarrassingly loud. Even Indra nudged me with his elbow and said,
I'm getting a little bored of this. Think of all the parties I'm missing in Swarg.
How about we declare it a tie then? I suggested. Truth be told, as much as I love watching fights, this one was devoid of excitement. I'd rather be traveling, telling stories, and singing praises of Vishnu. Though, in my narration, I'll probably leave out this fight. Indra was relieved when I suggested the tie. This was the outcome he wanted, but he was glad the records would not show him suggesting it. I'd provided him a graceful out. He blew his whistle 3 times and declared the match a tie. Vishnu and Shiva were pretty cool with it. After Indra and I left the scene, Vishnu and Shiva talked to each other.
That was a great performance. I bet I'll win a Filmfare Award, Shiva remarked.
You did well, complimented Vishnu. And my illusion, which created all those special effects, they worked like a charm.
Indeed, Shiva said. I'm glad we had that conversation before Indra and Narad even showed up. It gave us some time to coordinate between ourselves. It's for the best that they all went away. Maybe they're not satisfied, but they're unlikely to ask us to fight anyway. And we got to save your face.
At that last bit, Vishnu turned to face Shiva and frowned.
What do you mean by saving my face? I was doing all this acting to save your face. If we were to actually fight, I'm sure you wouldn't last a minute. Oh ho! Mr. Preserver thinks he's more powerful than me, does he? Shiva taunted. Who was it who couldn't even reach my feet?
On that day, I was late to an appointment, and you know it, Vishnu replied. I can beat you here and now.
A challenge? You dare to challenge me? Very well,
Shiva answered. But let's leave that little epilogue for later. As I said, this happened after I had exited the scene. I only found out about this afterwards. I don't think anyone has told Indra yet. Now, if you do run into Indra at any point, let's not mention the story to him, shall we? All that play acting might make Indra think that Shiva and Vishnu have been laughing at him behind his back. We'll leave it there. A couple of notes on the show. We have seen a friendly contest between Vishnu and Brahma before. That was back in episode 46. We've also seen Shiva decapitate Brahma. Well, kind of. He only eliminated one of Brahma's 5 heads. The key takeaway is, my dad has never been seen as a serious competitor to Vishnu and Shiva. That doesn't mean he hasn't tried to make himself seem important. Maybe that's why he keeps granting outrageous wishes to undeserving villains. Vishwakarma, who created Shiva's and Vishnu's weapons, is a god who is also an architect and a weapons expert. He is very similar to the god Hephaestus from Greek mythology. The story of how Vishnu got the Sudarshan Chakra is an interesting one. I'll get to that in a future episode. Check out the show notes for links to the other Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu stories. In the next episode, we'll do an interesting story about the King of Heaven. I'm not referring to Indra, who has been the more famous occupant of that post. The story also features a character who you probably didn't know existed, and that is Ganesha's and Kartikeya's sister. If you have comments or suggestions, or if there are particular stories that you would like to hear, please do let me know by leaving a comment or a review on the site sfipodcast.com or tweet at sfipodcast. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get notified automatically of new episodes. Once again, thank you for all your love and support. The music is from purpleplanet.com. That's purple-planet.com. I'll see you next time.